66.
6640.
Your future lies in 6640.
66 books by 40 authors, and yet we now discover it's an integrated message system from outside our time domain.
Welcome to 6640, the ministry outreach of Koinonia House and Koinonia Institute. Today's Bible teacher is Dr. Chuck Missler, connecting the Bible to your life and the world around you. In today's study, Dr. Missler completes his teaching on the book of 2 Kings, chapters 14 through 16.
God just anguished over this unruly child, as the way he describes it. And I will heal their waywardness and love them freely, for my anger is turned away from him. But see, Israel was unmoved with God's pleas. That's the pain of Hosea, as the nation then fails to listen to the painful pleas of Hosea on the one hand, or the angry denunciations of Amos. And the prophets spoke, but Israel would not hear. And one of the things I encourage you to do is take a look at those passages and judge for yourself if there's a parallel with the Northern Kingdom and America. But let's get on to 2 Kings 15. Let's shift again to the Southern Kingdom, talk about Azariah. The 27th year of Jeroboam, king of Israel, began Azariah, son of Amaziah, king of Judah, to reign. 16 years old was he when he began to reign, and he reigned 52 years in Jerusalem. Wow, he started young, but lasted quite a while. And his mother's name was Zedekiah of Jerusalem. So he reigned a total of 52 years, and that's the longest reign of any king of Judah or Israel to that time. And he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord, according to all that his father Amaziah had done, save that the high places were not removed. Here it is again. He does really well, except he doesn't go quite far enough. The high places were not removed. The people sacrificed and burnt incense still on the high places. See, the problem isn't just that they're worshiping God in Jerusalem, but they're also worshiping. See, that's the problem we all have, by the way. This all sounds so remote. It's ancient history, whatever. Let's be careful. Because they're worshiping God on the one hand, but they're worshiping a lot of other things too. And one of the things this should call us to do is to examine our lives carefully. Are we allowing anything else to eclipse God in our priorities? Are there other little things we do that are sort of, winked at? No, God is very serious. Takes himself very seriously and expects us to take him seriously. Okay, verse 5. And the Lord smote the king so that he was a leper unto the day of his death, and dwelt in a separate house. And Jotham the king's son was over the house, judging the people of the land. So there's an overlap here again. And see, what's not recorded here, you have to piece some of this in from 2 Chronicles, the parallel passages about chapter 26. He's getting very proud, and he intrudes on the priest's office. You may recall that God went to great lengths to keep the royal line and the religious line separate. The royal line was the tribe of Judah, and the priestly line was from the tribe of Levi. They're supposed to be separate. The Levitical priesthood, the Mosaic priesthood, is separate from the royal line of the Messiah. It gets united in the Messiah. There's only 3 places in the Scripture where we have a king and a priest in the same person. Melchizedek, just a verse or two in Genesis 14, which would go into obscurity if it wasn't for Psalm 110 and some other allusions, and an elaboration in the Epistle of Hebrews. The priesthood of Melchizedek is different. Remember, Melchizedek is one that Abraham gave tithes to. And the writer of Hebrews makes the point that when Abraham's giving tithes to Melchizedek, Levi is still in his loins. In fact, several generations later. You follow me? So that the rabbinical argument is that makes Melchizedek senior or more higher than the Aaron or the Mosaic thing in general and the priesthood specifically. But they're united in the Messiah. So there's 3 places. We have Melchizedek was a king and a priest. The Messiah was a king and a priest and will be, continue to be. And who else? Got Melchizedek and Messiah. Anyone? Jesus? Yes, of course. I'm assuming the Messiah, Jesus. The believers in Christ. Yeah, the church, the ecclesia. We need to understand the uniqueness of the ecclesia. Not all people saved are in the ecclesia. You need to do your homework. It's very important. But clearly, the kings and priests, Peter uses that expression of us as believers, and the 24 elders in Revelation, the identity of them is very critical to understanding what's going on there. So anyway, the point is that Amaziah intrudes upon the priest's office, and for that, God strikes him as a leper. And it must have broken Isaiah's heart when he died, because Isaiah was afraid that Azariah's successors would lead the nation back into idolatry. And so Azariah became a leper in about 750 BC. So he shared the throne with his son as co-regent until he died, and his son takes over. So Azariah slept with his fathers, and they buried him with his fathers in the city of David, and Jotham his son reigned in his stead. In the 38th year, Azariah the king of Judah did Zedekiah the son of Jeroboam reign over Israel. It's in the north now, in Samaria. And he reigned, how long? 6 months. Big deal, huh? Before we leave Azariah, I might mention he was probably one of Judah's most effective and influential kings in Judah. He expanded the territories outward to Elath. He fortified Jerusalem and other parts of Judah. And the combined territories of Azariah in the south and Jeroboam in the north approximated those of David and Solomon, just to give you a perspective. But unfortunately, he became proud and, of course, had this leper thing, and he's then humbled by God. So we have Zechariah, who's going to reign all of 6 months. That's a rather short interlude. And Zechariah did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, as his fathers had done. He departed not from the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin. And Shallum, the son of Jabesh, he's going to be assassinated publicly by Shallum. Shallum, the son of Jabesh, conspired against him and smote him before the people, and slew him and reigned in his stead. And all the rest of the acts of Zechariah, behold, they are written in the book of the Chronicles, Kings of Israel. So that takes care of that dude, for at least for this study. But I get to, this was the word of the Lord, which he spake unto Jehu, saying, this is a throwback, thy son shall sit on the throne of Israel unto the 4th generation. And so it came to pass. See, when Zechariah dies, Israel, the northern kingdom's 5th dynasty came to an end. This ends the Jehu dynasty. He had 4 generations God had committed to him. That's it. So God, that was predicted back there in chapter 10, verse 30, if you want to, track that all down. So Shallum, the son of Jabesh, began to reign in the 9th and 30th year of Uzziah, the king of Judah. And he reigned, guess how long? A full month. No, this is, see, it's a turbulent, bloody, place of intrigue and assassinations. The northern kingdom, when you get into idolatry, all the rest of that, violence accompanies it. So Menahem, the son of Gadi, went up from Tirzah and came to Samaria and smote Shallum, the son of Jabesh in Samaria, and slew him and reigned in his stead. Now we know from Josephus, apparently, that Menahem was the commander-in-chief of Jeroboam II's army. He was stationed in Tirzah, it was the former capital of Israel, you may recall, back in 1 Kings 15 and following. And he probably regarded Shallum as a usurper, of course, and he believed that he, as a commander of the army, should succeed Zechariah. That was his, logical conclusion. And the rest, he reigned for about a month. And the rest of the acts of Shallum and his conspiracy, which he made, behold, they are written in the book of Chronicles of Israel. And Menahem wrote to Tiphsah, and all that were therein, and the coast thereof from Tirzah, because they opened not to him, therefore he smote it, and all the women therein that were with child he ripped up. Now, they didn't acknowledge him as king, so he tried to explain it to them a little more clearly. He apparently was intending to intimidate other Israelite towns into supporting him by these rather open atrocities. In the 9th and 30th year of Azariah, the king of Judah, began Menahem, the son of Gadi, to reign over Israel, and he reigned 10 years in Samaria. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, departed not all his days from the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who made Israel sin. Notice how they always reflect back to the first Jeroboam when they make those remarks, again and again all through here. And in verse 19, and Pul, as it's labeled here, and Pul, the king of Assyria, came against the land. This is probably Tiglath-Pileser III. And we identify him from the Assyrian inscriptions. And it helps to unscramble some of the chronology. And this is, by the way, the first mention of Assyria in 2 Kings. And Pul here, as he's called here in the Bible, is one of Assyria's strongest rulers. And he came against the land. Menahem gave Pul 1,000 talents of silver, and his hand might be with him to confirm the kingdom in his hand. So he tries to buy his way into this thing. About 1,000 talents, about 37 tons of silver he raised from the wealthy men of Israel. And the Assyrian king gave him support. As he bought some support here. He exacted the money of Israel, even all the mighty men of wealth, of each man 50 shekels of silver to give to the king of Assyria. So the king of Assyria turned back and stayed not there in the land. The rest of the acts of Menahem and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel? And Menahem slept with his fathers, and Pekahiah, his son, reigned in his stead. In the 50th year of Azariah, the king of Judah, Pekahiah, the son of Menahem, began to reign over Israel in Samaria, and he reigned 2 years. He did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. He departed not from the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin. I have tried to stand back from trying to worry too much about the chronology. It's a complicated skein, and that's not really the issue. The real issue is to understand the spiritual thread here. And they're going from bad to worse as we go forward here. But Pekah, we're going to talk a little bit about this guy Pekah. Pekah, the son of Remaliah, a captain of his, conspired against him and smote him in Samaria in the palace of the king's house, where Argob and Ariah, and with him 50 men of Gileadites, and he killed him and reigned in his room. So this is he's another assassination. Argob and Ariah are probably princes. They were also killed, and this took place in what they call the citadel, in the most secure part of the palace in Samaria. And he then assumed the throne. Pekah has a penchant for scheming, and it's going to give rise to some little digression that I'll come to shortly. All the rest of Pekahiah and all that he did, behold, they are written in the book of Chronicles of the Kings of Israel. In the 52nd year of Azariah, the king of Judah, Pekah, the son of Remaliah, began to reign over Israel in Samaria, and reigned 20 years. He did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, departed not from the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, made Israel to sin. And so it goes. In the days of Pekah, the king of Israel, came Tiglath-Pileser, the king of Assyria, and took Ijon and a bunch of other unpronounceable words. Won't wade through all of those. All the land of Naphtali, many of those you recognize, Hazor, Gilead, Galilee, and all the land of Naphtali, and carried them captive to Assyria. This is one of the first deportations. Pekah had taken power in Samaria. He made a treaty with Rezin, the king of Damascus, against Assyria. But this resulted in Tiglath-Pileser leading a campaign and taking over these areas and taking a bunch captive. And this was in about 733 BC. There'll be a second deportation 11 years later that will finish the northern kingdom. So this is the first of two waves, if you will, that wipe out the nation. But we're going to move on here for a moment. And Hosea, the son of Elah, made a conspiracy against Pekah, the son of Remaliah, and smote him and slew him and reigned in his stead in the 20th year of the Jotham, the son of Uzziah. Now, this is a sort of a snapshot forward. You're going to get confused if you don't realize this is sort of an editorial, anticipatory description here. And by the there's some archaeological inscriptions that help support some of this, but let's just keep moving because we're running out of time. The rest of the acts of Pekah and all that he did, behold, they are written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel. In the 2nd year of Pekah, the son of Remaliah, the king of Israel, began Jotham, the son of Uzziah, king of Judah, to reign. Now we're leaving Pekah, and we're going to talk more about him, even though they've talked about his death. We're going to come back to him and some things that are involved here. We're going to shift, the scene shifts now to the southern kingdom, to Judah, and this guy Jotham, who's one of the good guys. In verse 33. 25 years old was he when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Jerusha, the son of Zadok. There's again a co-regency here, because he's going to continue as co-regent with his son Ahaz until and we're going to get into Ahaz. That's a whole other piece of this. Verse 35. And howbeit the high places were not removed. Here it is, that footnote again, that it doesn't quite cut it. The people sacrificed and burned incense still in all the high places. He built the higher gate, the house of the Lord. Now, all the rest of Jotham, all they did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah? See, he was a good king, but again, he didn't remove the high places. And he did a lot of accomplishments. He rebuilt the upper gate, the north gate, and the temple. probably to encourage worship of Yahweh or Jehovah. Other building projects, there's a whole list of them from other sources. Anyway, in those days, the Lord began to send against Judah Rezin, the king of Syria, and Pekah, the son of Remaliah. Now notice put yourself in the southern kingdom's point of view. You've got your adversaries, Pekah, the northern kingdom, the son of Remaliah, and you also have just east of them the Syrians, or the Arameans. Don't confuse them with the Assyrians. They're going to be the dominant guys later. There's going to be an alliance here that I want to talk about a little bit. And anyway, Jotham slept with his fathers and was buried with his father in the city of David, his father. And Ahaz, his son, reigned in his stead. So we're in the time now of Ahaz in the south, Rezin in Syria, and Pekah in the northern kingdom. And that leads us to 2 Kings 16. Okay. Now this pressure, I think, is probably from the Lord to be a test of faith for the Judean, for Ahaz. God's going to be putting some heat on Ahaz. And we're going to now deal with Ahaz's evil reign in Judah. In the 17th year of Pekah, the son of Remaliah, that's in the north, Ahaz, the son of Jotham, the king of the Judah, began to reign. 20 years old was Ahaz when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem, did not that which was right in the sight of the Lord his God, like David his father. So he goes from bad to worse. It's in Ahaz's day that Isaiah gives us the famous prophecy of the Messiah being born of a virgin, by the way. One of the passages that should be read in parallel here is Isaiah chapter 7. For some reasons may surprise you. I'll explain in just a minute. But he walked in the way of the kings of Israel, the northern kingdom. Bad news. Yea, and made his son to pass through the fire. That's a heinous thing. He sacrificed his son, obviously not Hezekiah, who was a son that will rule later, but as a burnt offering. He offers his son as a burnt offering to an idol. Can you imagine? And this was common practice among the Ammonites and other native pagan Canaanite nations that Joshua had partially at least driven out of the land. And he sacrificed burnt incense to the high places and on the hills and under every green tree, which is an expression like saying everywhere. Then Rezin, the king of Syria, and Pekah, the son of Remaliah, king of Israel, came up to Jerusalem to war. And they besieged Ahaz, but could not overcome him. They're trying to get Ahaz to join them because they're trying to build a confederacy of the north, south, and the Syrians against Assyria. But it's not working. Now, by the way, one of the questions, I'm going to pause here and just insert a little something. One of the controversial questions, are there hidden codes in the Bible? And most people, when you deal with this, talk about the equidistant letter sequence thing that's become very controversial out of books probably. I'm not going to even talk about that. This is something different. I want to call your attention to Proverbs 25:2, and it is the glory of God to conceal a thing and the honor or duty, if you will, of kings to search out a matter. In Isaiah chapter 7, there's some comments about this there. It says, it came to pass in the days of Ahaz, the son of Jotham, the son of Uzziah, the king of Judah, that Rezin, the king of Syria, and Pekah, the son of Remaliah, king of Israel, went up towards Jerusalem to war against it, but could not prevail against it. That sounds like the verse we just read, isn't it? And it was told the house of David, saying, Syria is confederate with Ephraim. And his heart was moved, and the heart of his people, as the trees of the wood are moved with the wind. This shook him up. Then said the Lord unto Isaiah, Go forth now to meet Ahaz, thou and Shear-Jashub, thy son, at the end of the conduit of the upper pool in the highway of the fuller's field, and say to him, Take heed and be quiet. Fear not, neither be faint-hearted for the two tails of these smoking firebrands, for the fierce anger of Rezin with Syria and the son of Remaliah. Because Syria, Ephraim, and the son of Remaliah have taken evil counsel against thee, saying, Let us go up against Judah and vex it, and let us make a breach therein for us, and set a king in the midst of it, even the son of who? Tibel. Now there's an interesting problem here. Who is the son of Tibel? Go search that if you like. Most people say it's a epithet of some kind. I'll come back to that. It turns out, if you take that word Tibel, and your sources here is actually the Midrash Rabbah on Numbers 18:21, believe it or not. It turns out there are three different kinds of classic encryptions in the Old Testament. I'm not talking about equidistant letter sequences. One is called Albam. If you take the Hebrew alphabet and you write it out and write the second half backwards under it, you have a opportunity to do transpositions. And if you take Isaiah 7:6, the word tabil in the Hebrew, and you find the letter and substitute its matching pair, that's called albam. It's named albam because of the first four letters of this concept. Aleph, Lamed, Bet, Mem. Albam is taking the first four letters of this scheme and pronouncing it. And what you do is you take the first letter and substitute the resh for it, and you take the other one. You just follow that pattern all the way through, taking each letter in the Hebrew and transposing it. You end up with Ramallah. So what this encryption reveals, the plan was that if they had succeeded, that the one that would be the guy, the agreed upon boss, was Pekah, the king of Remaliah. The son of Remaliah. Not the son of Tabil, son of Remaliah. It's encrypted. Not a big deal, especially since their plot doesn't work anyway. That's not the point. I think it's profoundly significant that there are encryptions in the Old Testament. Now, if you're a student of cryptography in CIA or NSA or someplace, it's well known. These are three famous encryptions in the Bible. There's three different models. Another one happens to be Atbash. That's if you take the second half and reverse it, and then do the same game in Jeremiah 25 and 51. The word Shishak turns out to be encryption of Babel, and in Jeremiah 51, the heart of my enemy, it turns out to be the Chaldeans. Not a big deal, and to a student of cryptography, it's an historical oddity. But for someone who understands the Bible has a supernatural origin, the presence of encryptions or signposts. It's what the rabbis called a remez, or a hint of something deeper. So I've mentioned that in passing because it comes up in our text historically. I won't belabor it. I just wanted you to at least be aware of it. And of course, there's references you can get into if you're interested in that. Let's move on. So Ahaz sent messengers to Tiglath-Pileser, the king of Syria, saying, I am thy servant and thy son. Come up and save me out of the hand of the king of Syria and out of the hand of the king of Israel, which rise up against me. Now Ahaz does a stupid thing. Isaiah just told him that God's going to protect him, but instead what he does, it's a form of unbelief. He goes to Assyria to get help. And Ahaz took the silver and gold that was found in the house of the Lord and the treasure of the king's house and sent it for a present to the king of Assyria. He's trying to get a very powerful partner to keep these other characters at bay. The king of Assyria hearkened unto him, and for the king of Assyria went up against Damascus and took it and carried the people of it captive to Kir and slew Rezin. That takes care of that problem. And the king Ahaz went to Damascus to meet Tiglath-Pileser, the king of Assyria, and saw an altar that was at Damascus. And the king Ahaz sent to Urijah the priest the fashion of the altar and the pattern of it according to all the workmanship. So Ahaz went to Damascus. He's so impressed with his altar that he has one made just like it. And how do you think that went over with God? I'm pretty upset, of course. A priest built an altar according to all that King Ahaz had sent from Damascus. So Urijah the priest made it against the king of Ahaz, came from Damascus. And when the king was come from Damascus, the king saw the altar, and the king approached the altar and offered thereon. And he burnt his burnt offering and his meat offering and poured his drink offering and sprinkled the blood of his peace offerings upon the altar. And he brought also the brazen altar which was before the Lord, and from the forefront of the house, and from between the altar and the house of the Lord, and put it on the north side of the altar. And King Ahaz commanded Urijah the priest, saying, upon the great altar burn the morning burnt offering and the evening meat offering, and king's burnt sacrifice, his meat offering, and the burnt offering of all the people of the land, and their meat offering and their drink offerings, and sprinkle upon it the blood of the burnt offering, and all the blood of the sacrifice, and the brazen altar shall be for me to inquire by. So this all sounds, you could argue, well, gee, it means it's good intentions. No, he's not following God's directions. And that's important. Thus Urijah the priest did according to all that King Ahaz commanded, and King Ahaz cut off the borders of the bases and removed the laver from off of them, took down the sea, that's this big wash basin, from off the brazen oxen, remember the 12 oxen, we talked about that before, that were under it, and put it upon a pavement of stones. And the covert for the Sabbath that they had built in the house and the king's entry without, turned he from the house of the Lord for the king of Assyria. So he took these basins from the 10 bronze movable standards that was mentioned in 1 Kings 7. He removed the massive bronze base from under the molten sea that we talked about in 1 Kings 7. And substituted a stone stand. Then he took down the Sabbath canopy, apparently some kind of covering that was erected in the courtyard to shade the king as they visited the temple. And removed the royal entryway outside the temple. And we don't know what he did with all these. It's not clear what he did with all these things that he took. But anyway, he willingly disobeyed God is the real point behind all of this stuff. And as we go on, we can lose sight of our own selves here. Do we compromise God's instructions in our behavior? Boy, I'm sure we do. Do we compromise instructions for fear of offending the pagan neighbors? That's what he's doing here. He's trying to gain favor with the king of Assyria. Now, the rest of the acts of Ahaz which he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah? One thing I might mention, that passage in Isaiah 7 that we just touched on to get the encryption thing out, that was up to about verse 4 or 5, 6, 7, whatever. It's verse 14 of chapter 7 where God tells Ahaz, ask me a sign. Well, I won't ask for a sign. He wouldn't do that. And he says, well, God will give you a sign. That's where you get the prophecy of the virgin birth. And people quibble about the Hebrew of that. It was translated into Greek by the Hebrew commentators 3 centuries before Christ was born, and the term in the Greek is very clear. We're talking about a virgin birth. Anyway, Ahaz slept with his fathers and was buried with his fathers in the city of David, and Hezekiah, his son, reigned in his stead. Now, Hezekiah is a good guy. And in fact, he's such a good guy, we're going to spend a good portion of the next session on that.
You've been listening to 6640, the ministry outreach of Koinonia House and Koinonia Institute. Today's Bible teacher was Dr. Chuck Missler, teaching through the book of 2 Kings. For a complete listing of resources available, please visit khouse.org. You can also call us on 1-800-KHOUSE-1. To learn more about Koinonia Institute, visit koinoniainstitute.org. Thank you for listening to 6640 and for your continued prayerful support of this ministry. Until next time, as we continue this series, may God bless you with the knowledge of His Son, Jesus Christ, as you study His Word.